And it is only a week ago when we were discussing this matter of road crashes and precious lives being lost in the carnage on Uganda's roads. A prominent businessman, Apollo Nyegamehe, commonly known as Aponye, he was involved in an accident along Balalantunga Road and he died on the spot. That's a sad story there. And again this morning we received sad news of the former MP for Erute County, and his name is Honorable Angino Gutmoy, who also died in a car crash. According to police, this incident happened at Ayago in Machishon Game Park along Kaluma Pakwach Highway. He died together with other 3 people, and 2 others also sustained serious injuries. Very, very tragic, and we take a moment to commiserate with the members of their families, the families of the deceased, the country at large, and of course again call on the policymakers and everyone to look at how we can solve this issue of road carnage in this country. Of course, like I said, there were exciting moments within the week. The surprise victory by a UPC candidate in the Oyam North by-election really made headlines this week, and it comes at a time when President Museveni is coming out with strong statements about violent elections in Uganda. Well, we'll be asking whether President Museveni is reinventing himself. He's serious about this particular matter, which is actually serious political matter, touching the political future of this country. The panel will also have time to look at that. But again, during the week, several other big stories, including the craze around DNA tests, paternity tests. We'll also be looking at that, especially after Parliament also came out to implore government to come up with a regulation on these paternity tests, citing issues around children rights and or quality assurance in regard to these services and all other matters. Welcome to the program. My name is Tim Apollo. Let me introduce Dr. Jared Wanzara, a regular panelist here. He is a researcher working with Africa Leadership Institute, one of those NGOs which oversee the works of Parliament. Welcome to the show. I'm pleased to have you on the show again.
Thank you very much, Apollo, my host. It's also good to see you happy and smart.
Very good.
I'm also happy to share the panel with Dr. Sylvia. I'm here to learn about DNA, especially the scientific part of it. So I hope the discussion of course,
there was need for a doctor.
Yeah, because me, I address it from the way I sit in the community.
But Dr. Sylvia is a lawyer.
She's a lawyer.
Yeah, but also familiar with matters of family and all those legal
Of course, you know, these days we do the academics, but the practice can be different. As you know, I think I'm one of the few logistics engineers in Uganda, but my interest is development work, parliament monitoring and governance.
Thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Dr. Sylvia Nambiru Mukasa is the executive director for an NGO, Legal Aid Service Providers Network, in short, LASPUNET. Thank you so much for coming. Talk to our viewers before we start.
Thank you, Apollo, and it's always a pleasure to be at Salty Media. And thank you for always hosting us. I look forward for an exciting discussion. Happy to share with an expert in governance. And we commensurate with the families of the late Aponye and the late Gutmoy. And we also congratulate those that received the happiness.
Wow. Make that clarification that you are not a doctor, but...
I'm not a doctor of medicine, yes. Humanity is my expertise, but also law.
Wow.
So that is where I am. And when I'm talking about DNA, I'm going to give it a social justice perspective.
Thank you. We are pleased to have you viewers on the show. Of course, we'll be joined by Richard Baguma, a communication expert and an advocate for proper nutrition. He'll be joining us, and we implore you to be part of this debate and discussion in the studios. Of course, by using our usual lines, send a message. And on this note, I have to appreciate people like Joel in Kirinya. He is a regular, participant in this program. He
seems to be my neighbor, but I don't know him.
Really?
But I really appreciate him. He's one of those loyal. And then there are people who call me from different places. There's a gentleman called Moses Mutiwa from Kasolwe in Kamuli. And then Salongo Mulongo in Semuto.
Okay.
They all, I don't know how they get the contacts, but they feedback. They come on social media and follow you up to know more about you. So it's really good. We thank you guys.
Yeah. All right. Like I said, an exciting and a week with sad moments here and there. But again, we will also be looking at a very interesting but somehow controversial matter. In Parliament, Gino Kaindo Tafire defended the cat and other herbs. He was appearing before the Committee of Defense and Internal Affairs, which is scrutinizing a bill on narcotics, and he made strong statements comparing cat, commonly known as miraa, with coffee and alcohol. And to him, he says that cat is not dangerous. You know cat, doctor?
Yeah, Mairunji.
Mairunji, very common in this area of Nakauka.
Even Kenya legalized.
General Tafire says that this should be treated as a cash crop. It brings in revenue. It's not as dangerous. But we'll come to that. But let's first talk about this road carnage. A comment from you, Doctor. Road carnage. Just a week ago, we've been talking about this, and it is indeed happening again.
Yes, last week we discussed this in line with the bill, the act that was signed by the president, and of course we agreed that there's need to really strengthen legislation. But we also talked about the need to strengthen enforcement on the roads, because if I look at the accident of Aponye, it was about a truck that was parked station, and then there was no triangle, because if you have the triangle, then it will reflect, and you know there is a car that is maybe parked there. So they came and rammed into it. Again, it's about enforcement. Sometimes people think that those things are just for fun in the car, in the cars. And then we have seen those that are results of drug use, drunkenness, narrow roads. So really we need a serious campaign on road safety. And I thank my colleague who is not yet here, because they are assembling a big coalition on road safety, Uganda Coalition for Road Safety, which I am happy that we are applying to be part of, to work with the government to ensure that we impact our country, because we are losing a lot. We are losing lives, we are losing money. It's not good for this country.
It's not good for this country. And looking at this recent accident, the one involving this former MP, from this in the statement from police, the car lost control. The driver lost control of the vehicle, and it overturned, killing 4 people on the spot, 2 others injured. Well, from that statement, you suspect that it would have been overspeeding. And talking about the road safety and traffic amendment that we will be discussing last week, we talked about that particular provision that overspeeding will be costly at this point. You'll have to pay 2 million shillings if you're convicted for that traffic offense.
Yes. Of course, speed is one of the biggest contributors, overspeeding, one of the biggest contributors of road accidents. And therefore, but you may not also rule out, he may have been overspeeding, but also we don't know the state of the car in which it was. And also, if you use a driver for a long distance without rest. Someone can slip on the steering and cause an accident. So all those factors,
the mechanical condition of the vehicle,
exactly, the state of the driver. So we have seen such cases.
Well, Dr. Sylvia, I don't know what we as a country can do about it. And last week we all agreed that not only legislation can stop this carnage. That possibly personal discipline and that regard for people's lives can actually help in curbing this particular problem.
I tend to agree. You see, Uganda, we are very good at legislating. Very good. We think that everything is going to be solved by legislation. Once you have the law there, and then you begin to apply it, that is, if you apply it, then the problem will stop. We forget the root causes. You see, yes, the laws are good because they guide us as a society. We have penalties involved, etc. But it all starts from the beginning. Who is driving on the road? How have you trained this driver to be professional, to have defensive driving skills? In Uganda, anyone, as long as they have learned how to drive, can get on the road. But when you look at other developed countries, moreover with very good road networks, well marked, everything is good, you cannot get on the road even when you fail a simple something sign when you're on the road and they are training you. By the time they say you're a driver, whether private, whether by business, you are good to go. Then they have a level of speed that you cannot go beyond, and that is strictly enforced. The maintenance, the road maintenance is put into also consideration. But when you observe Uganda,
the
state of roads in Uganda, the potholes, and then you observe the drivers on the road, you begin to ask, did these drivers go to the driving school? Are they aware that any moment a car can lose control, however good it is? So sometimes, especially when I'm on Ginger Road and then I'm on Masaka Road and I'm being driven, sometimes I even develop goose pimples. I have this paranoid when I'm on Ugandan roads, because you see people just passing anyhow in corners where it is not allowed to overtake, they are overtaking. So when there is anything like a slight problem ahead of you, that car that is stationed on the road, because you are used to overspeeding, it will be very hard for you to control. In addition, of course, that is something that causation, it brings that, it accelerates the accident, but also the mind of the driver, the defensive driving, the resting drivers. Do they know that after a period of time you are supposed to rest? Even if you are one driver, you can't drive for 1 hour or 2 hours non-stop. It is a requirement that at some point in time you stop, you relax.
You rest.
Yes, you take a drink, then you continue with the road. So the safety of us on the road begins with us as drivers, individual, human beings. Life is precious. We should have that in mind, that once lost it is not what? Recoverable. So when you're on the steering, have that mind. Don't say, I am the one, I have a right on the road. Just have that element of defensive driving in you, that even if you are the one to go, at that juncture there is a border crossing and you can't move. So once we develop the discipline, together with the laws being enforced, because we know that even when they make these offenses, they easily get away with
corruption
it.
And everything.
Yes. So let's make the laws enforceable. When you have committed a crime, a traffic offense, that it's not a crime, a traffic offense, you're taken into the process. If it's a fine, you pay it. If you are going to court, you go to court. Then also us, the discipline. Then the training. Then the mechanical conditions he's talking about. Before you go up country.
It is quite huge what actually needs to be done, because if you talk about the state of the mind of the driver, then the training of the driver, then the mechanical condition of the vehicle, then you also look at the state of roads, then you go to the legislation, enforcement and corruption. Dr. Gav't Wanzara, it is really sad, and I don't know if we will ever overcome this problem.
Now, once we we identify it as a country, and we say this is a national problem, and then we work collectively, all stakeholders.
Exactly.
The public, yes, the public, civil society, government, everyone. For instance, if we tell our border brothers that you have left a wife home and the children, and you are carrying a client, then you are rushing and you are entering a trap, what value is it going to give to the family when you are dead? So
the impact of
yes, the mind should change. Why are you rushing, driving very fast because you are going to a pork joint or a bar? Can't you wait for 5 minutes? If you don't get that beer, are you going to die? So we need to really work together as a society, as a country, to ensure that we address this problem.
Well, it's a matter we cannot discuss comprehensively now, but it's very sad.
Yes.
Because Dr. raised a simple issue of that red triangle that alerts the driver behind that this is a stationed truck, stationed vehicle. You should either overtake it or
even branches.
Confront it with caution. But how many of us have these triangles in our vehicles that if anything happens on the road, you park on the roadside, then you put there this triangle that will alert the driver behind that something is wrong. Really, I don't know how we'll ever do it. We again commiserate with the families. Of course, like this prominent businessman holding, he has been running a string of serious businesses and industries in this country, and not only that one, but many other Ugandans who have lost lives on the roads. We implore all stakeholders to do something about it. It's a very serious issue to look at. Viewers, well, we can move on and look at other big stories of the week. As I talked about General Tafire before the the Defense and Internal Affairs Committee of Parliament defending Gav't and Mailungi. He says it is a cash crop. At one point, I seemed to agree with him because look, we can get a lot of revenue from because people in Butambala, actually, I think that is a cash crop in Butambala. They get a lot of money from this cut. I happened to go to Somalia. It's one of the income, actually in Kenya, one of the major income earners for these countries. And Otafire's argument compared cut with alcohol. Look at, he says it's not as dangerous as alcohol. I don't know your take on this particular matter.
I'm not a scientist, but and I've not really known the dangers of Mairungi. But I would like to agree with him that in Somalia, I saw him actually questioning the Committee of Parliament, saying that Somalia, almost everyone choose Mairungi and they export it. So he said, how many Somalis have died? We would not be having people in Somalia. That's what he was saying. Then Mairungi, Kenya has a significant number of Somalis in the northeast of the country, and when they were really victimizing them under the law, it became a serious issue because most of the families in that area were growing Mairungi to sell in Nairobi and also to export to export Somalia itself to their brothers and sisters there. So they chew. I have had some testimonies. People say that when they are chewing that Mairungi, they don't sleep, especially when they are working.
It's a stimulant.
People who take coffee,
like caffeine,
work for long hours in the night and things like that. So, for me, I would recommend a study. I'm more worried about opium.
Yes.
And yet I see it being smoked even just next to police station.
Is it opium? No, it can't be opium. I think that is marijuana, just marijuana.
That is weed.
Yeah.
Not weed. I see it being smoked almost everywhere. You can pass places, you smell it, and so it is even being consumed more than this Mairungi. So what I recommend is probably the committee would invite people who have done studies on this, what is contained in Mairungi, and then we can have an informed decision. Yes.
An interesting topic, I know, to you, Doctor, but it is here. And I was looking at the revenue, because we seem not to have many channels of getting revenue. I've talked about people in Utambala who are actually, even a team from Wakiso came to Parliament, I think it was on Wednesday. They were saying, this is our business, this is a source of livelihood. We plant this thing and we export it, we get a living out of it.
If they only front, the issue.
They even have an association
of
Mira growers.
If they only front the issue of the economists, then the economics, then they will be wrong, because even the marijuana farmer would say that it also brings money. We know in Busia it is illegal, but there are people who cultivate cassava around the garden, then they hide the marijuana in the garden. When Honorable Napanja was the RDC, she used to go and uproot. All the time she was uprooting that marijuana in people's gardens. So the Butambala people should not only use the economics, the income. We need science, whether even to Honorable Waterfield, we need science whether this marijuana, this mairunji is really good
for health.
Or if it's not. But if it's not, then we can do away with it.
Okay.
And then we can introduce another product to the
but doctor, talking about marijuana and these other drugs, good that Baguma will help us. He has done several studies around this, the issue of narcotics and substances. There are countries that actually use these herbs as medicinal purposes, and they reap a lot of money out of it. I don't know. At one point, Israel wanted to have Uganda give them a place where they can plant marijuana. Is it marijuana? Yeah, this in Jakarta.
Actually, it is being farmed in Kasese.
Why can't
an investor, but it is controlled.
Yes. Why can't we put in place controls? But we get revenue out of it, for God's sake.
But Richard, sorry.
Doctor, first make a submission.
For me, I think, like he has rightly said, why did the law come to Parliament? What was the intention? Because we don't legislate out of nothing. There is an anomaly that is being cured by legislation. So the promoters of that legislations, of course it's narcotics and etc. And they have listed the types of narcotics. I would expect them to have done a previous study that shows the reasons why this has to be regulated. And then also the opposers, or those who feel that this cut is a good thing for business, should also be able to advance their reasons. But we need to look at the repercussions, because every business in one or another needs to be regulated. And who grows it, and how do you grow it, and how do you process it? You see, I find it strange that this cut is, I think it's eaten raw, the way it is. Maybe it requires to be processed like we process coffee, the way we process tea, and we have it in a manner that is more modernized, presentable. Then you can call it a product, you can call it a brand. Otherwise, like you've mentioned, I've been moving around Nakauka, and homes are really planting this kind of plant. It means, yes, they are earning out of it. But what is its effect?
Okay.
Drugs, when they are taken, what is affecting our community? Are we Ugandans oriented to have that kind of drug? If we are talking about Somali, maybe Somali as Somali. Is it because we are having Somalis as refugees, then we should promote their thing? To what extent can we as a country say this is for us, this is not for us? So before we dismiss it completely, since people already involved in it, we need to interrogate, but with evidence.
Thank you. You also call for scientific evidence to back up this particular research. Happy that Richard is in the studio, and he's a strong advocate for or against narcotics. Speak to our viewers before we delve into this.
We are here discussing encroaching on your territory.
For God's sake, how can I be for narcotics? Good morning, our viewers. Like I always say, God is great and God is very merciful. We get onto the roads, we go into air, we go on water, and we are back here.
Wow.
Every Saturday.
Amazing.
It's not by our own power. So thank you, dear viewer, for following us. I'm glad to have you, Doctor. No, two doctors, actually.
Yeah,
These guys, their heads are damaged, others, they are medically. And Apollo, thanks for hosting.
Let's go straight. The parliamentary committee is reviewing the narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances control bill.
Yes, you see, we had that act. We fought,
cat should be treated as a cash crop.
After the Tobacco Control Act, 2016, we fought for the Psychotropic Substances Control Act. There were clever people. There are very many clever busybodies in this country. They went and had it thrown out in Parliament for whatever reasons. We are now fighting for the alcohol control bill. I mean, we are being called spoilers, but I think we are the best thing that the economy this country has had, because you can see the problems that we have. Every problem, HIV, gender-based violence, road carnage, whatever, you will find drugs, alcohol as one of the major drivers. Surely, how can we be wrong? Yeah, that. Now, specifically, by the way, General Otafire is not the first time he's generating controversy. The other time he said Waraji was okay, it's the one they grew up saying. So how can you really not be amused and be amused by General Otafire's position?
He said he has drunk Waraji for 40 years.
He's not the icon of good behavior, not in any standard. So for me...
But don't you find, a valid argument or valid reason in his argument that possibly the people who are earning a living out of this cut, which seems not to be as dangerous as alcohol or njaga, marijuana, don't you find him somehow with reason there?
I usually use the example of guns. That guns are the best thing to happen to humankind and also the worst thing to happen to humankind. Yeah. I already say that. I say, okay, so guns are good. We can argue about security, about everything. Should we leave them go in the hands of everybody? This is what I usually ask. The laws are all about control. The key word
is control.
Is control. That's all we are asking for. I usually use the analogy of a car engine. When you go to start a car, they say you are igniting.
Oh yeah.
Ignition, that's what they call it, that you do the ignition. It means lighting a fire. That's what the word ignite means. And you are lighting a fire on petrol.
Oh yeah.
Apollo, I want you to get any average human being and put their petrol and say, go and light a fire near them. They will all scatter. But the engine is made in a manner that it has, absolutely, it has controls that you will light a fire on petrol and sit on it and arrive in your destination. That's what we are. This is what we are talking about.
So you say it's all about control.
Absolutely. This is what it is all about. Every psychotropic, almost every psychotropic substance has some advantage in some level
of advantage,
and has disadvantage too.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is what we are talking about. So for somebody to come and say no, we should let it go. I keep telling people there is no way you can multiply human beings without sex.
I don't think General Otafire is saying let's let people eat cat or unregulated. He's saying, look, let's think about the benefit that we can get out of this. We can regulate, yes, but let's...
But that's what the law is about. Because it has medicinal elements. Absolutely, we know this. Even marijuana. It's put in some of the drugs.
Yeah, it's a medicinal herb.
Yes. But for you, for cat, for example, I am not aware of any clinical trials that have been done for us to establish its efficacy, and the amounts and the doses, we don't know. People get leaves and put them in their mouths and they
Somebody sent me a message here. He says cat is effectable.
There you go.
What?
They are competing with the goats.
Is effective.
It's a vegetable.
Is a vegetable.
Cat is effectable.
Eaten raw.
Alex is in Chisugu, and he said, thanks for the program, Team Dialogue. My suggestion, let traffic officers start working at night, because those trucks in bad conditions, they do move, especially at night, even they don't have brake lights, thus causing more accidents and losing lives of people. Thank you so much, Alex in Kisugu. Before you came in, we were talking about the road crashes, the same topic we were talking about discussing last week.
And I said we are going to talk about this until next year.
Yes,
this is going to be a topic until next year.
We'll go on and on.
Yes, yes. We are going to be dying on the road.
Okay.
We'll stop that. We'll stop that. That's his name.
When you're going to say, it is the truth.
Your final comment on this issue of narcotics.
No, we are going to keep having debate. We are going to keep having a lot of debate. You see, before, about 60 or so, 70 years ago, there was no debate about the dangers of tobacco use. In fact, the first consolidated research, I think, came from the guy in charge of health in the United States. I think he's called the Surgeon General. And it was grossly disputed, including by professors. Now, studies and research have shown us that there is no debate. There is no longer any dispute. We didn't know that much problem of alcohol on our rivers, we didn't know. So for me, that's why I was saying, I'm not aware of any studies, any clinical trials that are going to tell us the efficacy, the best value. We know from inference that, for example, when you chew, you take longer, you take away some of the sleep. But do we know what other things it does to the body? Maybe that's why these vehicles roll off the road. So because you are choosing, you get exhausted and you are finished. We know that there are some cancerous challenges that come to the mouth and the throat, oropharyngeal cancers that come as a result of chewing this. We also know that it is used in suppressing appetite for those people who want to lose weight. So there are some things we know, but they are all from inference. Yeah, and as long as
you also call for broader studies.
And I am saying before we have those studies done, let's control. Yeah.
Thank you so much, our viewers, and you can go on and be part of this discussion by sending your WhatsApp messages. I emphasize it, WhatsApp messages or our usual SMS messages on 0701 609906. Tell us what you think about these issues we are discussing in the studios. Richard Baguma is a communication expert, an advocate for proper nutrition, but also now an advocate for road safety. Dr. Jared Wanzara.
Why do you survive bad nutrition to die on the road?
Dr. Jared Wanzara is a researcher, and Dr. Sylvia Nambiru Mukasa is a legal expert. She heads the
organization, LastNet,
Legal Aid Service Providers Network. Thank you so much for being part of this program, and I don't know what you can say, Doctor, to conclude on this matter.
There are two doctors.
There are two doctors.
Call us by names. It'll be easier for you.
Your final comment. Your final comment on General Tafire's remarks, because Richard raised the concern of General Tafire not new to controversies, but me, I said, if we can look at that economic benefit, also it's an issue we can.
And me, I would like to reassert that we shouldn't only look at the economic benefit, but we should also look at the impact of the substance on the human being. That before we can take the line of the General Tafire, let's have the facts clear. But as of now, I think it is important that there is some regulation. Yes.
Okay. Dr. Nambiru, any comment before we move on?
Yeah, I'm for regulation, control, but also facts.
Facts.
Yes. Research is key. Evidence-based legislation.
So now that the law is before Parliament. Do you think there will be time to exhaust all this, or do you recommend that it should be given more time because you've been behind these laws, this particular law? Do you think it is time, or they should give it more time? What do you think?
I think two things. One, I think we must have a law. Like it has been demonstrated to us, it can be amended where we didn't get it right. But I think we must have a law. That it was knocked out of our law books by a technicality. For me, I think that technicality should be cured. Let's have our law, and then we can go amending and improving it. For me, the danger is not having regulation. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's move on, but I think people are still sending in messages around the traffic and road safety issue. Thanks, Apollo, for giving us, okay, those people, okay, I read it as it is, but really, let people of Uganda, especially those who drive, mind on the lives of Ugandans, because our roads are in poor conditions, and he is Sabit Eric in Mutungo Bina. Thank you so much, Eric. I encourage you to keep on sending these messages and be part of this discussion. I will try to read these messages out. Let's go straight to the by-election in Oyam, that is Lango sub-region, and the congressmen must be celebrating until now. Luckily I have
congresswomen too.
Luckily I have in the studio, I know that you are a congressman.
I was.
And then
I'm now.
Are you surprised that UPC took that victory in Oyam?
No.
No?
I'm not surprised because of a number of reasons. One, the fact that Lango is the home of the UPC, and UPC has many leaders who are elected on the ground. LOC 1 chairman, LOC 2 chairman, LOC 3, and then parliamentary, of course, somehow, because of the what I call a Haida-goat relationship between UPC and NRM.
Haida-goat.
Haida-goat relationship.
What is that?
Haida-goat. What is that?
You know why I call it a Haida-goat? Like you are in a relationship, but then
one party will eat another one.
Someone is eating you up. Because there was a time Lango had all members of parliament were UPC.
Yeah, true.
Then later they moved to the FDC, a number of them, including this one who has died. And then later, this friendship of UPC, I saw NRM gaining some constituencies. And so right now, Lango is shared. But if you add now Otuko, who won this election, UPC has 10 MPs, and all of them are from the Lango sub-region.
Really?
Yes. So
only Lango sub-region?
Only Lango sub-region.
So it's a stronghold for UPC?
It is a strong,
no question?
No question about that. Then it also comes back to the candidate. You know, there is this, what we are introducing in our politics, elective politics, like which I believe is going to make our parliament a parliament of the walking dead.
Oh.
Hey.
That when your father dies, then
Dr. Williams is on fire today.
Yes, that when your father dies, then the son.
Doctor, it is happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
That the son has to come, or a daughter. That when a husband dies, there's a wife, you know, who comes around. So in that, it dilutes the quality of parliament, but also I know the NRM wants to ride, people want to ride, not only the NRM, but the other parties also are trying to adopt the same. You see that people want to ride on the
legacy.
The legacies of their fathers.
Sometimes not even legacy. You know, when in Africa someone has died, there is a lot of emotion attached to death.
The sympathy vote.
The sympathy vote. So when you go and people are still mourning, then there was probably, let's give this one also to eat. So we saw the late Samuel Ngola.
It did not work this time.
And particularly for that one, because you know that Ngola Jr. was a councillor of UPC in Oyam Town Council. And in the previous election, he was at loggerheads with the father. So just seeing an opportunity of you coming to parliament because there is income, then you switch. You become an RM just overnight. And then lastly, the third point, there were complaints. There were stronger candidates like Queen Amolo, that lady who competed in the primaries. She was grounded.
NRM primaries.
Yes, she has been grounded. She lived in the US, had projects, NGO on the ground. She was more recognized, but a certain fraction of the people grabbed the late Ngola's son. And primaries also, there were reports of grabbing delegates and hiding them in Gulu and Lira. So that other candidates don't access the people who are going to elect. So this enfranchised certain people, and therefore there are people who went in that election, and I can assure you, reports we get that there was rigging, but I think the difference was quite big.
I saw that altercation between Dr. Tango Doya and Jimmy Akena, UPC president.
There is a forum I belong to where they were saying that one of these days they will castrate the professor because of being involved negatively in every election. I was not there, but these are allegations people are saying that they are tired of him. And, yes, and so for me, if I was Professor Tango Doya, that's what they were saying.
So, Doctor, you said there were many dynamics behind this particular by-election, but what stood out was the fact that it was a stronghold of UPC.
Yes, and then the choice of the candidate was wrong. The choice of the candidate was wrong.
Thank you so much. Let me first cross to Baguma Richard. What do you make of this by-election, especially after President Museveni authored, actually not one letter, he authored another letter, we got it this evening, showing his disgust towards violent elections?
No, I think, I don't like guerrilla tactics. They are very good for war, but my president,
he's playing guerrilla.
My lovely president, the one ban I support, I keep repeating that. I love him for this. His guerrilla behavior ever.
Really?
Yes, he's such an accomplished gorilla. That he employs gorilla tactics at every turn. So I am expected to believe what my president, my party chairman, my senior OB, my father's friend, I am supposed to believe what he has written. Excuse me, leave me alone.
You don't believe in your president?
Please. Not on that matter.
Okay, not on that matter.
No, that is about what? Election, staffing, ballot staffing, what did he write?
Rigging, ballot staffing,
violent attacking. I saw the headline, I just left it around. I just, please. That we are talking about, that he's disgusted about electoral violence.
Anyway, are you surprised that UPC took that?
I had not paid attention to that election. I had thought in my heart that UPC is going to take it. For me, when I think about Ulango, I think it's a UPC place. I even think that the guys who claim to be NRM are actually in their hearts UPC. That's what I think.
But even
the ones from that
but even the
I think that there is a marriage of convenience between a faction of UPC and another faction is not. So for me, I didn't even pay attention. I actually had in my mind thought that UPC was going to. I because of that historical connection, I didn't have any science. I didn't pay attention to the dynamics. What I would have been shocked about totally was if there had been no violence. I would have been totally shocked. If there was no ballot stuffing, I would have been shocked out of my skin.
Of ballot stuffing.
Because these are second nature to our elections.
Bribery.
Particularly when it's a by-election and everybody is focusing there. By-elections are excellent times for making money for many people. Yes, they are excellent opportunities for making money. So people swarm, bags, move around, and life goes on. And that's what is going to happen. So I don't think there were many deaths in that area.
Yeah.
I don't even think there were many injuries. No.
Talk about the trend of sons and daughters succeeding their deceased politicians.
No, me, I've told you that I don't give I don't want to say some of these words, the SH word, about who, as long as it is complying with the law and it's on merit. I don't want to be disadvantaged because I am the son of my father. My father was the chairman since 79 Mayumba. He was always being returned as chairman. So if I come to the village now, you throw me out because my father was loved as a chairman until he relinquished it when he grew very old. Now recently before he died. So for me, I want to please stick to the rules and be meritorious. That's it.
Dr. Sylvia, I don't know if you can make a comment because you're Ugandan and these matters actually concern everyone because it is about the political future of this country.
Yes.
We again, as the president expresses his displeasure in regard to violent elections at this point in time, and again in this by-election, the same things happen. There are cases of, reports of vote rigging, ballot stuffing, bribery. When the president is actually calling for investigations into these matters, I don't know what it means to you
For as long as I've seen Ugandan elections, especially in the most recent times, they've been violent, bribery, vote rigging. The most recent one we saw was in Kayunga. That was chaotic. And I'm surprised the president didn't come out then. But probably we have what we call Paul and Saul and Paul. So maybe now we are coming to recognition that we need to address that problem.
True.
So I don't want to dismiss completely his leadership and taking the leadership and saying, you know what, I think we've had
enough.
Enough is enough. And that gives us hope. By the way, for me, I even didn't like him. I didn't read. I just read the headlines on it. But I said maybe it gives us hope. Since the president is an icon within the political dispensation of Uganda, that probably the other that listen and look up to him will begin to listen. Specifically for the area, I'm happy. The lady who came out, whether UPC or not, I associate with her from the work we do. She's a lady of the vulnerable. She's been heading FAPAD, Facilitation for Peace and Development. So she's grounded in terms of peace, reconciliation, in terms of academic, in terms of the ability. I have no doubt whether UPC, whether NRM, that she will give her people what is due as a member of parliament, because she has tested leadership at the lowest ground, and she's able to come and raise their voice. So whereas she belongs to UPC, that is given, like others have said, it's in the blood, that part of the region. Definitely, whether you say I belong to NRM, you still have allegiance to the father of UPC. Yes, so whether UPC won or not, but what we wouldn't want to really continue seeing is this cheap politicking and violence. How do you come and you steal away voters, ballots, and you begin to tick them in broad daylight? How do you justify that? You know, there are many things that really don't cause for that. To what extent can we go to fight for leadership? About the succession and bringing children to be leaders, well, yes, the ground has to be labeled as long as they are on merit. But it is becoming a routine, monotonous, that even when someone is not able, even when someone has just left his school, just because the father died, just because the mother died, then they should give them that sympathy vote. Then we're not going to question when it comes to the highest level. When His Excellency says, now it's time, my son, to come. Yes. How will you question it when you members of parliament have been having a D-Day in ensuring of your succession and making it hereditary or whatever?
Thank you, Dr. Sylvia.
On the morning, another loss to the civil society world. I congratulate the madam. But I mourn another loss to civil society. Every time a strong civil society person moves away to the political arena, they are finished. Yes, every time. The evidence.
Sylvia is still stuck.
Once Sylvia goes, because the people of I don't know where she comes from will come and convince her to go and represent the women of I don't know where.
They usually come.
And Sylvia will be gone, finished. Wow. That's why I mourn.
Thanks for the program. I am Stephen K. But for me, I believe that God created all plants for our medicine. And I think even cat has some medicinal properties. However, most of our people eat it basing on esembu insitu jili yako makola.
I tell you.
Viewers, we should go for a break, but let me, of course, get these messages out of the way. Apple already, we have realized that that letter of the president worked too much to Ugandans, such that people can decide to vote whom they want, and this is why UPC has won. I am Sabit Edkin Butungu. Really?
I disagree.
Finally, from you in just 1 minute as we go for a break.
I really disagree because I don't know whether what I have a fact, but I was pushed, motivated.
Before I forget, Dr. Sylvia raised the issue of the individual brilliance in the candidate.
Yes.
Go ahead and conclude in 2 minutes.
No, to be sincere, if a person is inheriting a constituency on merit and is able to campaign, but this opportunistic way of doing it, that because mourners are still mourning, then if we pick a son, then they will be feeling very sorry for the family, and then they elect that person to come. That one is wrong. But if people in their own means, their own strength, are able to come and compete.
Doesn't that, put up a challenge to other areas of Uganda that these people have said, whereas we are still mourning the death of the late retired Colonel Charles Sengora, and you're bringing a son? No, we are not going for him. We are identifying this capable person to go to parliament.
But it also depends. Like we have told you the fact about Lango, UPC posed a challenge. But assuming, say, the MPs from Chiruhura and the person who has died from there, probably the NRM people will just agree now and say, let's have the son go on. But there was a different factor, the other side.
Thank you so much, the panel in the studios and the viewers out there. We are going for a break, but we know that in the second hour, we have to look at this DNA craze. People are actually, it has become a very, very controversial issue. People raising issues of children's rights, and the Ministry of Internal Affairs actually saying that the number of people going for paternity tests is actually on the rise. I don't know what people are looking for anyway. Let's go for a break. We'll return after a short while. This is The Dialogue. Don't go away. Welcome from the break. This is The Dialogue. My name is Tsimapalo, and the panel is set to take on the storm which is brewing across the country, the issue of paternity tests. And of course, this comes at a time when the country is all looking at it as a threat to the core of the society, which is the family. And even the matter went to Parliament, and they say it is time, and it is very urgent to have government regulate and guide on this controversial matter. Good enough, we have Dr. Namubiru Sylvia to take on the matter, and you'll give it a first shot. They say that the families are being torn apart. They say this comes especially when the husband finds out that the kids he has been providing for a very long time, they are not actually his biological offsprings. And even the Deputy Speaker of Parliament said we need a regulation. What do you think?
Okay. Apollo, I'm going to give this discussion in a lot of context. I'm going to give it a legal perspective.
Please do.
Give it a social and contextualize it. Time immemorial in Africa, all children belong to the family. You bring up children, whether they came with a mother, whether they are your relatives, they are your children. And we had safety nets for the children. You would come, you're a neighbor, you find a child going on to school and doing something wrong, and you discipline them. But as society grows, we modernize, globalization, we are becoming individualistic. So some of these things now begin to come and take us by storm, and we don't know how to handle them. I want to agree with the perspective of Parliament and the line they are taking. It is very, very important that now that we are having this issue, that it is regulated. First and foremost, I even wonder where it came from, and it had to boom like this and take us by surprise.
It is science.
You see, there has always been in Africa how they determine a child in the home. I'll speak from Buganda, where I'm coming from. When you're a mother, you are told to keep what we call akalira komwana, the umbilical cord. You keep it like a treasure. Although now women are beginning to put it away. That means at some point in time when there would be a doubt, there are cultural
measures to
whatever
confirm.
Customs, things they would do to confirm whether the child is for that home. That is how the Baganda used to do it where I come from. But now we are having the modern DNA tests and etc. I want to approach it to know that, first of all, it's from a rights perspective, you have to do it cautiously if you have to do it. The right to privacy. This is not a matter that should be in public. Even when it happens and you determine that this child is not for this home, you have to protect what we call the best interest of the child or that person, that individual, because privacy is given to all of us by the Constitution. Now, we are floating on that. It's becoming a public. Children are being recorded, and the fathers are saying, now I release you to go to your home. You are exposing this child to trauma. The other one, from the rights perspective, a child has to know their parent identity. This is by the Children's Act and the Constitution. Where you belong, your parent, you should know. So, in a way, a child should know that this is my biological parent or this is my guardian and etc. It is a right for a child to know where they belong.
Does that provision of the law which provides the right to children to know their parents prescribe which way?
I am coming to that.
All right.
I am coming to that. So ideally, when we get married or if we relate as a girlfriend and boyfriend and we have what we call the issue, a child out of that relationship, prima facie, that is your child, that is my child. By virtue that we related, had sex, and produced this child. It is no doubt, because I will tell you, you are the father. And we begin to look after this baby right from the womb, birth. Even at the time of birth, the nurses ask, or the midwife asks, or the doctor asks, who is the father of this child? And you will disclose the father of the child, because you are the mother. And you are the best suited to know who the father of the child is. And so you report Mr. Richard here, Dr. Gerard here, and you say that is the father. So prima facie, that is the father of the child. By identity, that is the father. Now, when do we go into the DNA? And this is what should be very important, especially if we have to protect the family. It's when there is a dispute. The father has neglected to take care of the baby. Yes, the father doubts, and you are having conflict within the family. But how should you do it? It should be well guided. You should not just wake up and say, today I am going for DNA. Either you, the mother,
are you suggesting that that should be in the law, or that should come up in the regulations, or
currently in the law? Currently in the law, how do I determine paternity? How do I determine paternity? I either tell you without necessarily going into court, and I tell you the truth is, you are not the father. But you need to prepare. In a way, you need to create an environment that prepares this man to receive this information. And there has to be a trigger that brings that. However, if you feel that this one is denying, that's when you go to court and you apply. We call it the complaint on oath. Family and Children's Court. They make orders. They guide. You go and do a DNA in the government laboratory. All in a tested, that's why I think that's why Parliament is saying, can we regulate these private medical laboratories? Should every laboratory declare DNA test which laboratory, and what facilities and standards do they follow?
Quality assurance.
Quality assurance. When, at what point do they declare this information? How do they prepare the parents? Supposing the results are saying otherwise, how are you preparing this father to receive this information? How are you preparing this child depending on the age? Because if the baby is still a baby, no problem. But once the child has become 5, the child of these days, already the attachment is there to the father. So how do you declare and how do you keep that information? We've seen children who are being adopted and they live in homes and they even don't know that they were adopted. At the right age, maybe 18 years, is when they declare and say,
when they are mature.
When they are mature, they have been prepared, the mental state is ready, they have created the processes that lead to declaring that, you know what, we picked you from Uganda, and this is your birth roots. But we have adopted you and we took off all the whole responsibility. You belong here right now. But you have an option now that you are 18 years to either go back to your birth roots and trace for them. So that process is what now Parliament wants to regulate. So that you don't wake up because you quarreled with the wife and the wife said, by the way, that child is not yours. You say, now let me rush and go and do a DNA. When you rush there, you are going to end up in Butabika. Because you cannot contain the fact that you have carried this baby, been taking this child to school, being with them as father, and you see even you have this perception that the features are mine. Yeah. Probably you've seen the head and you think the head looks like yours. Features. Yes. So the mental stress and mental trauma that is involved in the process of DNA. Not to say that DNA should not be done, but DNA should be done under justifiable circumstances and guided by a good process, and the information should be given appropriately.
So you're in for regulation,
but not to do it anyhow.
Okay,
it's not necessary. Let us have a level of trust in families and trust our spouses. If there is nothing that triggers that, why do you go for it? Why are men now on rampage going for DNA? What has gone wrong that did not go wrong previously? You see, what has caused that? Is it because they are saying women are emancipated? Today I was reading a case, for example, of a woman in Rakai, I think Chotela, crying because the DNA results are saying the children are not for the man, but the man is saying for the 5 years I have never slept with any other man. These are his children. And the woman was crying and saying, okay, let's go for a next DNA. Yeah, I'm ready to take the next DNA in a government lab. What does that mean? What about children that are exchanged at birth? There is a racket where there was issues of trafficking in children. There were those who wanted boys and those who wanted girls, and they would deal with some of the hospitals. I can't say this one and that, but the story is there, you know, that there are babies that are exchanged at birth. Supposing that is a scenario, and your baby was exchanged. Okay. What happens?
That would be very complicated.
Yes. So we need to be very cautious when we are approaching the issue of DNA. If we continue like this, we are going to have many ending up in Butabika, Heart Institute, as he has said, people dying, committing suicide, homes disintegrating, children becoming confused, a whole society getting disoriented because someone started the issue of DNA.
Thank you. Dr. Jada Dwerio-Wanzala, you giving us your submission, but one issue maybe I can raise before you take it on is the issue of identity, that now we have national IDs. These national IDs are issued in accordance with our lineage and our parenthood. Now, when somebody wakes up and says, no, I have done this test, you are no longer my child, that means your identity will automatically have to change. That is the level. And also, before you come in, and Richard, it has reached that level when even legal experts are exchanging ideas on compensation. That if I have fathered these children and met expenses of life up to either senior 4, senior 5 or university, and then one day another man shows up and says, this is my child, then he has to compensate me. That's where we are now. And again, as you come in, there is another concern that unscrupulous individuals will soon start peddling fake services, taking advantage of unsuspecting husbands who want to confirm the paternity of their kids. Go right away. Regulation.
First of all, I thank Doctor for contextualizing it very well. She brought in the traditional and concept, then the legal, and of course, as she has explained. The other day, when I saw this sweeping across the country, I contacted a colleague in Kenya about, I said, what's the experience in Kenya about this? He told me that the DNA in Kenya is only authorized to be obtained from the national laboratories of Kenya. Reason being, the dangers she has told you about. Like now, let me give an example of HIV results. We have had cases where, like St. Francis Chapel, where people go for wedding. I wedded there, so I know that they would demand the HIV results. So when they demand the HIV results, there are people who would go to some laboratories and fake and come and present fake results before the priest. So given the nature of our society, you cannot rule out this about the DNA. Now, once fake results are peddled all over, like I said, even if people will wake up saying DNA 50,000, come here, you know, yet you have issues to do with the privacy. She has talked about the handling of the specimen. Are you sure the specimen you're handling is for Richard or is for Apollo? So this is a danger to our society. But also, there's a trigger. What I would call a moral crisis in this country. There is a breakdown in the family system. There is a lot of immorality everywhere. Even some organizations should be forgiven that came up with, I attempted to join a lottery, I pulled out. But the reason why I left was because of the fights over women and men. These are good causes, but some people with bad characters want to use it as avenues for getting men or women. So, and then in the neighborhood at a family level, it's the same. So the level of mistrust is very high. And so, for me, I would appeal that maybe we go back to what went wrong, a reflection. But definitely, if we don't regulate it, people will end up at the Heart Institute. People will end up in the mental hospitals. People I know, I will protect. But I know a very high-profile person in this country who received some years back DNA results on phone. And he almost jumped in the lake when he was coming from one of the islands on Lake Victoria. So we need to be really very careful, sensitize our people. And ladies and gentlemen out there, if children don't look like you, don't argue. It is possible that the children are not resembling you. Their families we have seen.
That is really the starting point.
Yes. Don't just sit there. You begin strangling children and wives because they are not looking like you. It is very dangerous.
Namuviri knows that Abaganda, they say, okufana na siluganda.
Yes.
Okay, Richard, what do you make of this craze around DNA, and now that government is stepping to bring regulation on paternity tests? Looks like your two colleagues here are in support of this regulation.
I think for us, we say abaturi na bazara bakushana. That when you live together, you produce children who look alike.
But how does it come?
Yes.
By association?
In fact, among the Banyankore, it is difficult to describe on air. The DNA test, the way they tested the way.
I heard it. I don't want to hear it. It is a bad one.
But that was the method. That was the method they tested. And it's always traditional wisdom.
These traditional things can be funny.
That was always traditional wisdom.
But are they really true? Is it true?
It's the same as what Doctor here has described.
For the umbilical cord.
You keep the piece of an umbilical cord, and you know, it was the wisdom. Because this thing of people producing children away from the spouses and having them in these homes is as old as human beings. So that's why you can see it in all traditions. That's why all traditions have methods of establishing. The difference is the way it was resolved. That is the major difference. That it would always be resolved quietly.
Yes.
Yes, there were social mechanisms for working on that because it was happening. They accepted it happened over time. I think what we have failed to do, or what we are struggling with, because this is also relatively new now for us, is to find ways of how do you resolve, how do you manage the processes and the resolution. And I think that's why my two colleagues are talking about, that we need a regime that applies across. We need a standard, we need rules that this must be resolved. Because we have to accept that it happens, whether we want it or not.
Yeah, true.
I know two colleagues. One did not know that that was not his father. Both of them did not know that those were not their fathers until they died.
Oh.
Both of them were adults, married by the time, and with children, by the time they knew that those men who looked after them were not their fathers. One has no idea who the father is because the mother died earlier than the father and didn't tell him. It was after the father had died that now the Senga, the auntie, said, but you know, Tori Wachka, you don't belong to the clan. But he also agrees that looking from his looks and all the other siblings, clearly he was always not saying that he was not. And then they gave him the history, how the mother came when the pregnancy was young. Actually, they explained that why she accepted that man as the husband was because she was looking for somewhere to belong. And this was a poor boy in the village, and the girl was from a rich man who had chased her. But so he always teases, makes fun that he's making his own clan. He started his own lineage because he doesn't know. The second one, we knew on the day of the burial, because for the Bagara they have some things they do with the children of the man. So when they were going to do those things, that's when the woman said, you know, this one cannot be part of this one. And the father was actually there present at the funeral. So immediately he also introduced himself and said, I am your real father. These are adults that I know. So DNA must be regulated. Okay. Now that the traditional methods, DNA testing must be regulated, that the traditional methods are no longer applicable. For me, the craze is also the erosion of the values we had and the introduction of materialism as the main value. The key value we have now is materialism. We are very materialistic, and for us, it is higher than everything else. Consciousness, truthfulness, brotherhood, every value has been subjected to the. So somebody is your brother because you are in the same material category. Your real brother is not your brother because there is no brotherhood relationship, because they are poorer than you. So for me, this is, and why do people test that this one should not partake of my inheritance? Should not be part of material. That is what also feeds the other question you were raising, compensation. That is very material. That you see, I have been spending some money on this child. Please bring it back to me. So for me, this is rooted in materialism. And if we are materialistic, then we must be regulated to respond to that. Otherwise, for me, we have done DNA tests because of the nature of our work, especially my wife's work, actually, because we have to go live outside. But also, this was done for medical reasons. We had to check
within your family,
within our family. But there was no tension. No, we we didn't even think about these things, that this one doesn't look like that one. And finally, I will give my own example. If you saw my photos of childhood, I was absolutely light-skinned. I can't believe that that's me as a child. I used even to debate with my mother. I said, but are you sure you took the right photos? Yes, because I was extremely light-skinned with big, soft hair.
You want to dispel this argument.
And very, very big.
You want to dispel this reliance on physical outlooks and physical features to determine.
No, you see, it should be scientific and regulated.
Oh, yeah.
Because if at that time they had used my physical looks, probably they would have thrown out my mother. It is only the stepmother of my father who, when she came, she said...
So you appreciate science?
For me, absolutely. What I also appreciate is the materialistic confusion that has subsumed everything else, every other value. I also appreciate that.
Oh my God. Yeah. Viewers, I will be taking your messages right now. Send in your messages on 0701 609906. Tell us what you think about this craze around paternity tests, and possibly give your comment on the move by government now to regulate these DNA tests. Salute, sir. On the issue of DNA, we have had cases where babies being exchanged from hospitals, others stolen from their biological mothers, and its only fathers going for DNA tests. In my opinion, government shouldn't waste any time. That so long as we are all Ugandans and Africans, what is the problem? I am Stephen Kamuye. Stephen, thank you so much. Can you react to this comment?
Yeah, Stephen.
That babies are being stolen in hospitals.
It happens. We've seen cases. Even there are certain cases in courts. Yes. So it is true, babies are stolen, and I think where such scenarios come, it would be good also the mothers.
So there is a possibility that you will go for DNA tests and you find out that both of you, you a father and a mother, are not related to this.
And then you will take that child as your adopted child, because
now what
definitely
happens next? That means even in the legislation, in the law, this should be catered for.
Yes, then maybe you trace backwards, you know, and now the hospital will be liable. But like he has talked about materialism, but I wouldn't say that we should leave it.
Oh, wait a minute. There is another suggestion that paternity tests should be taken at birth in hospitals.
That could be also another, but still why? Because for me, I really think paternity should come in where there is a need for it. Because if you do it at birth, it means again the same problem will come. Because you may find that at that birth people are happy, they have received a baby.
But that is better. I think that's somehow
someone has undergone a C-section.
A C-section, and no.
They may
let the paternity test be done as and when it's necessary. Because even in the traditional systems, it was when it was necessary. I wouldn't agree with him when he says we leave it. No, we can't leave it. Society has to be regulated.
We are all Africans.
We have already seen the morals have gone down. We've already seen the family unities disintegrating. We've seen the materialism coming through. Because even when you hear the father, the first thing they say, give me this house, give me that, because the child is not theirs. The issue is how to come up with regulation that can facilitate resolving this issue in a manner that makes the family remain dignified, the mother remains dignified. Because if I can give you, why the fuss? We've seen fathers producing out of homes,
out of the wardrobe,
and mothers welcoming these babies. We've seen children being introduced at the time when there is burial, and mothers come with these children, and they are taken to be confirmed. We've not seen women saying, oh, now you see, because you've done this and this, I will not do that. We need regulation to keep harmony, even amidst this challenge, this moral degeneration, the fact that it has always been there. Let us not look at it that, hey, it's new. Like he has rightly said, we know that mothers used to go for gardening and they meet their boyfriends there. They are in the gardens. And before you know it, she comes and hides the pregnancy. You see? So it's not something new that should say, you know, now what has happened to these Ugandans and ladies. I've heard some people talking about this emancipation. It has nothing to do with emancipation. It's individual, the woman, the human being, and how their behaviors are. Okay. You know?
Their moral stand.
Yes.
Hello team, inheritance and sempanse. Oh, that is another term I'm not familiar with. Sempanse of sons and daughters of MPs. It is going to cause a lot of problems in this country because while others are mourning the side of the children, it will be a blessing in disguise. Alex Nkisugu, I think, is relating to the issue of inheritance in politics, not inheritance in the sense of this paternity test. Thank you so much, Alex. I will be going through these messages very fast. Yes, good morning. Thank you for the program. I am John Vian Nyesiga, now in Mitiana. When DNA of a child is tested with the mother, do they match? Or it only matches with that of the father?
They match.
Of course they match.
They don't have doctors, but they match.
Actually,
like you saw,
I don't think
so actually it's much stronger.
Exactly.
In the mother.
There is no doubt. There are no doubts on whether, if it is their child, then there are no doubts. They must share the DNA. You know, that's a bit scientific. Good morning, sir. I think the issue of DNA should be regulated. This is because most people are going to use it as an excuse of neglecting responsibilities. Yes. Thank you so much, Nicholas from Bushenyi.
Take an example of a case in the Administrator General where there is fighting for property, materialism. And there are children that are being said, these are, you know, the father has already died, and the woman, the mothers of these children are being marginalized, say, by the family that has an upper hand. If DNA is not regulated, it is very easy to deal with these fake...
Maybe to add on that, there is a case in the newspapers right now involving Pastor Solomon Male and Male Mabilis,
the lawyer.
That the other children, I think they are brothers, but the other children...
They are saying he could not be there.
Is not there.
Their brother.
Their brother. So he's fighting for his life.
Not his life, his lineage.
It is life, really.
Because he says they want to exclude him, so he goes with nothing.
Okay, being someone's father is different from being someone's parent. Do you get that one? Being someone's father is different from being someone's parent. If you find out that you are not the father of a child, let at least accept to be the parent, other than exposing a child to psychological torture, of which that child might not be able to find the parent. I am Innocent. Thanks for the program. Very good. Thank you so much, Innocent.
Is echoing the spokesperson of immigration who was saying
Simon Peter Mundei,
who was saying that he take care of other people's children because they are also taking care of you.
Yeah. But I think that is the argument Richard Baguma raised also. Take care of them.
But look here, this is a child you've grown up with. You've carried them through. They are here. Senior 2, Senior 3, Senior 4. Why would you throw them out?
Yeah, Godfrey in Goma. I don't know if Goma, this is Goma in Zaire, but it is in Goma. He says it's very important for a child to grow in his biological lineage. Yeah, these mix-ups are the causes of instability and criminality in this country.
If it is possible for a child to grow...
So he is in for DNA tests.
Yes. If it is possible for a child to grow and through the birth parents, lineage, that lineage, that is the best. But doesn't mean that they are not children who have grown up without their biological parents and they have even lived a better life. But what is most important is the emotional love and support and providing for the basic needs of this child.
I think Innocent is raising an argument against sentiments from some people who are saying, why can't we let it go as, I mean, why are we digging up these skeletons? Why shouldn't we move on?
Apollo, that is what exactly I said at the beginning. Do a DNA when it so requires. When there are justifiable reasons to determine your paternity. where you were born from or who is your dad.
Okay.
It is either there is neglect, a child is being neglected, a child is being denied that I'm not your child, your father, and the mother has to ensure that she confirms. There is issues of inheritance, administration of estates, and some people are being left out. Yeah, there are things that create that environment that causes you to go, like he has said, medical.
For medical reasons.
Maybe you are moving out of the country and they insist on it. So I think that is when it should be done.
The issue of DNA will remain a puzzle until we choose to go back to the origin of marriage and having children as per the word of God. A husband having to love his wife as Jesus loved the church, and wife submitting to her husband. Without that, there's going to be rampant chaos in families. Unfortunately, you didn't give us your name, but I think the message is very clear.
I don't know how our elders used to do it, because you'd find a child in a home looking exactly like a neighbor, and they would stay. They coexist.
So, but this one, I'm telling you, he knew this one was not his son. No, he knew. They looked. He stayed. At the prime of marriage, they were. It is only when he died that this revelation was done.
And like you said, they had the mechanism.
Yes.
They take the child, they pay the compensation, the traditional compensation. They introduce the child to that clan.
Yeah.
But they say,
They go
because
back
for purposes of
to their
protecting this person, we are taking him back to grow with us. But you know very well where you belong. Harmony, which this modernity is
This
destroying.
materialism.
So, Richard Baguma, do you think as government moves to regulate this particular matter, can you pick out those key issues that should not be left out?
No, for me, it's
Or
the reasons.
should
What
be taken cognizance
are the
of?
reasons for testing? I think the reasons should be clear. Then two, what is the efficacy of the test?
Yes.
Because
The
see, I
effectiveness.
have heard that people go and camp at saloons, and when you cut the child there, then
they
you pick
take the hair.
Imagine in a saloon, you can even pick another lock of hair. Honestly, you see, the other day on our forum, one of the senior doctors was saying, for people who may want to do business very rapidly, import what do you call them? Rapid testing kits now. Before the regulation comes, you'll make millions. How are we handling the samples? How are we doing because you know the doctor, one of the senior laboratory doctors was telling me that when they find a mismatch the first time, they start the process afresh. That's why it can take 3 to 5 days. And this, if it's an emergency, that's when they may be 24 to 48 hours. But that they start the process afresh. They have to ensure that the first test and the next test have gone through. There is due diligence. We must provide for that, which means the accredited laboratories for testing and the accredited personnel must be of a certain category, like they do in Kenya. So it cannot be like now Chiagadi, that you know every little lab is collecting
samples,
some money, you know. I think this is very dangerous. But this is also dangerous, not just for DNA. It's dangerous for medicine, misdiagnosis of every other ailment. Yes, can really be really dangerous and troublesome. And so for me, that is why. So the law must regulate all these things.
And let me, Richard, take you back.
But I also think I was even arguing that there is probably no need for a new law. That if we have a law already regulating lab practice, we just need a regulation that would be specific for DNA under the law. It's possible.
Okay. I would like to take you back to where we started from. Somebody asked a question, well, how did we get here?
Materialism.
I think it is Doctor.
For me, it is that we have become so materialistic.
Wait a minute.
Business,
Wait a minute. Yes, now you talk business. I've been told even now in taxi parks, there are now cars that are branded Yes. DNA tests call this number.
I saw the DNA taxis and I was like, what
is this? As a communication specialist, can't we be playing in somebody's court? Maybe some people who have seen business into this are now making the whole country crazy and driving debate and possibly hoping to reap out of this whole thing. Because a few months ago, this issue of DNA was nowhere. We are talking about family in terms of homosexuality and all that. Now here it comes. What is happening in the context of communications? What do you think is happening?
For me, what is new? There is nothing new. We have people who advertise on media, regulated licensed media, that they have cure for cancer, that they have cure for HIV/AIDS. They advertise.
But the end point is the economic benefit they get from...
Absolutely. That is all. They advertise. They are moving. So for me, this lack of enforcement, I keep talking about impunity. I keep saying that I don't want to be called Mr. Impunity. That you are going, that an NDA comes to regulate certain practitioners and says you cannot claim that for you have medicine for cancer.
Yeah, true.
And you are doing it on air. And then these ones, in their association, they go to the president. Please first leave my people. This is the whole challenge that we have. So the DNA people are following probably they are the same players, following in the footsteps of all these others who abuse every rule book and every practice, professional practice.
For their own benefit.
And they are let to go.
And for things touching health, for sure, a government that loves its people, we cannot talk about advertising health services.
Oh, yeah.
We cannot. For example, I come from the legal profession. You cannot find a lawyer advertising themselves.
Yeah.
You go find them where they are located, they have a license, and you go because of the services they are giving. How on earth do you come to advertise DNA? Something you know very well that once it is out of control, it is going to cause a mayhem. So I think we need to be really, NDA, they really need to do.
National Drug Authority.
Yes, they need to do their bit. I saw that on one of the taxis and I was like, my God, when did we reach this level? You know?
That's why somebody goes into a public service vehicle and says they have a piece of clay which heals everything. That is for it heals everything. Really? How can you have medicine?
Doctor, with the actually you will also all look at it with the gravity of this matter and in its broadness.
Yes.
Do you think we are ready to put everything in place in a short time and have this issue handled very well?
Yes, they put everything in a short time and enacted the homosexuality bill. It was touching the life accordingly, protecting the children.
But it's you who talked about the need for counselors who would handle these people who will be taken through these things.
Already there are mechanisms.
We need quality assurance.
Quality assurance. Already we have the government lab that is already tested. The government lab that tests the NDA, I mean DNA, it is already there. So if we say that for any DNA that can be taken as serious, you have to go to the government lab. Why is government delegating everything to liberalization, privatization? There are certain things that the government should not delegate to private sector. Because the private sector, look what the exorbitant fees they charge in the medical health, or the medical fraternity. Yes, you cannot delegate everything to them. Probably maybe because they are overwhelmed, the human resource and etc. You can pick 1 or 2 labs and you add them and you annex them and they are regulated in a manner that they are able to do following the requirements of doing this process of DNA. But not every Tom, Dick and Harry, Mbarara you find there at a medical lab for doing a DNA. You go to Mbale, it is there. No, let it become very difficult.
The services should be
let the service become very difficult that you always seek for it when it is necessary.
Doctor,
we had accredited labs for COVID. Yeah.
Let
We
it
have
be.
everybody.
Yes.
No. Doctor, do you rule out the personal individual interests in this whole thing, this craze for DNA?
Of course, I will not rule out, like Richard talked about materialism. It cuts across. We have those technical officers of government who are involved with clinics. We have politicians. We have the ordinary people. So if you see these things advertised, probably they could be involved, conniving also to reap from it. You remember COVID, I call it the COVID rush, where you would find a hospital, a health care coming up, and then all of a sudden people are being referred there, and you find a bill of 300 million for a person who has died. And then you wonder, does Panadol, how did you arrive at 300 million for a COVID patient? Is Panadol, how much is Panadol, paracetamol, how much is azithromycin, how much? So all these come in. That's why we must regulate and have those, a few that we can effectively supervise and get credible
I even have a
results
feeling,
for a good reason.
I even have a feeling that if the services were centralized to certain place, a government place, and they can even be offered free of charge, there won't be many who would be coming to.
Actually, how even this government lab was doing, you would go there for a reason.
Yes.
Yes, and you come for
you
reason,
have a
particular reason.
Whenever there was whenever there was contention on the result, sometimes the government would then facilitate samples to South Africa for comparative purposes.
Okay. As we wind up, because we only have 10 minutes, I can read messages here. It is responsibility that qualifies a man to be a father, not just DNA test. Do you get that one? Maringa Tadeo in Bushenyi, he says you cannot impregnate someone's wife, you leave another man to raise your child, and you come later to claim that you are a father.
Pay compensation. We say pay
Some compensation now comes in.
Before you take the child.
You come to claim.
In most cases, women producing children with other men is caused by when the men, where you find that we can't perform our sexual duties well, yet we expect our women to be loyal to us, which is not possible under such circumstances. And it's very true that most men's sexual capability is deteriorating.
Let's agree on the sexual capability and the men not being able to produce.
So a woman looking for sexual satisfaction by mistake gets pregnant and can't declare the husband. Ali is in Masaka.
Declare. You know this is a family. You talk about issues.
As man
you
and
can
wife.
be able to know that I can't produce, and you produce through a surrogate. Even the lone surrogate is coming.
I think in Kenya they
Yes, you know very well that I donated the sperms, and they were put in test tube, and I produced. It is just talking. Families should begin to talk about these issues without shying away, and we shall eliminate some of those scenarios.
Richard, we are winding up. Your parting shot in 2 or 3 minutes.
The first one is about the road carnage. We have had what I call high-profile deaths. They tend to kill the story. So we will know about the grain billionaire, and the former MP. But in between those two, in Nakawa alone, there were 2 people who died of motor
Actually, in the billionaire's accident, even the driver died.
Yeah, but you see, and so the road carnage must be tackled. Yes, it must be. We met the leadership of the police this week, and they were very frank with us. They said these new introductions had not been communicated to us. So while we fight, we are fighting as the Road Safety Coalition of Uganda. The Ministry of Works and Transport must also do its part. The budget has been increased. I commend the Parliament. I told you 9 times from what it was previously. Still not much money, but for me a 9 times increment is commendable. But the ministry is really constrained. The Transport Directorate is very, very tiny. But most importantly, Apollo, between me and you, we must, me and you, the road users, be the #1 road safety
advocate.
Absolutely. And enforcers. We must enforce with ourselves. The next one is this DNA craze. Please, if you want to go to the hospital, heart hospital, I don't know, cardiac arrest, to go the mental hospital, just go ahead. And
you're not in for DNA
no,
tests.
and go and do the things. Let's not do them. And because you also contribute to the road carnage, some of you, with your mental stress.
Okay, I have enjoyed the program. Surely, Dr. Namwiru, thanks for your contributions, mostly on DNA issues. It should be for government, not private facilities. Yes. Alex in Kisugu appreciates you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks. I am Karim. Thanks for the show. I am in Mkono. Gentlemen and ladies, our time is running out. Can Dr. Namwiru take her parting shot?
Yes, I will not repeat the road carnage. We need to be responsible on the road. I call upon our men and women out there, please, this DNA, whatever mayhem should stop.
You are not in for DNA tests?
Stay there, come in your home, be responsible, trust, have the highest level of trust of your family, be a parent as we had, not just a biological parent, but be a parent to your children. And if it is necessary that you have to take the DNA, prepare very well, go to the right place, that is the government place, and follow the procedures.
On the panel, it is now 2-1, because I may not be involved in that vote. Dr. Gerard, your parting shot?
I conclude by responding to Ali that let's not do immorality because of this talk of the town, men not performing and things like that. You know, there are so many dangers. Marriage is not only about, you are not going to act a porn movie. Okay, sex is very important, but you should not be driven by lust to ensure that you bring children that are going to make you lack peace, and then also the other dangers like STDs. So please, let's protect the family.
Yeah, true. Thank you. Are you in for DNA tests? People should go, I mean, with any slight slash of doubt, should they go for DNA tests?
No, we have discussed here. Let there be a good reason. And let there be a good reason, but also the right place to get those results. Because you'll get fake results and you'll strangle your children and the wife for nothing. You'll end up in Luzira.
That is 3-0.
Yes.
The panel has voted no for paternity tests, and we can only wait to see how government moves on this particular matter. Like we said, government has moved to regulate paternity tests, and we can only wish for the best. I must thank the panel, Richard Baguma. It's always a pleasure, and to me it's a privilege to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Mine is a pleasure and privilege and an honor.
And an honor. Thank you so much. Hope to see you next week. Dr. Sylvia Namwiru, it's an honor to have you on the show. And the audience has actually appreciated too.
Thank you so much. And we thank the management of
Doctor,
media.
Man from Namisi Indra, it's always a pleasure to have you. And your submissions are always spot on.
Thank you. And of course, great thanks to the viewers who are always with us, and encourage more to follow. But it is self-selling. This program is reaching so many people.
Good. Thank you so much, our viewers. Thank you so much for being part of this show. Thanks to those who sent in their comments and participated in the show. Until next week, the dialogue is now out. Let's catch up next week. Good afternoon and a splendid week ahead.